Hi everybody, welcome to my latest SOS parenting video. So this week I want to talk to you about the problem with rewards and why rewards are so problematic when it comes to discipline and learning. So I think a lot of people think, well, rewards are always good. They make people feel good. You know, which kid doesn't like to get a sticker? Which kid doesn't like to get a treat? Which kid doesn't like to get a prize or a certificate or star of the week or something? Surely, if punishment isn't such a good idea, which that's a whole other video, surely rewards are a good idea. As adults, surely we get motivated and inspired to work better by being paid in a job. You know, that's a reward in itself. So surely kids do better if we reward them, if we make them feel better and we inspire them and motivate them with rewards, then they'll behave better. But actually, the research tells us completely the opposite. The problem with rewards is that they presume one very big naive presumption. They presume that all kids can do better, but they're choosing not to. So every time we look to reward a child for their behaviour, we're always thinking, my child can do better. But my child at the moment, for whatever reason, is choosing to not do better. So rewards work on the idea of motivation. They always presume that a child is not motivated to do better. And that would make sense if only it were true. The problem is, most of the time kids are already motivated to do better. You know, everybody wants to be liked. We want to make those we love and spend time with happy. We want to be happy and sort of in an even keel ourselves. So maybe that they do already have the motivation. And if you think of it like that, if they're already motivated, they don't need an external motivator. The problem is, with a lot of the behaviour we hope to see from children, whether we're talking a 12-month-old, a 7-year-old, a 15-year-old, a lot of the behaviour we're hoping to see from them is actually behaviour that for whatever reason that they're not capable of doing. So it could be that we want a toddler to stop tantruming. Well, we know that that's beyond the realms of toddler brain development. We may want an 8-year-old to never be rude to us, to never use back chat, to always do what we ask them to do. And the trouble with that is it requires a lot of impulse control and a lot of this sort of emotion regulation and an emotional maturity that an 8-year-old doesn't have. Similarly, let's imagine a 15-year-old in a class at school who's struggling to learn for whatever reason. You know, maybe they have an undiagnosed special educational need and they're struggling in that lesson, but the teacher misses the struggle and instead tries to reward them when they're good. So the problem with rewards in all of these cases is they are completely blind to the fact that the kid can't do better. And in that sense, if a kid is struggling and can't do better, by rewarding them when they're good or not when they're struggling, what we're actually doing is punishing them for having a struggle. So what we're saying is, if you can't do better, you won't get the nice stuff. And what you find is again and again and again, they don't get the nice stuff. So they end up with a bit of a self-esteem issue, and that actually makes their behaviour worse. So problem number one with rewards is it presumes that the motivation is a problem when it normally isn't. It's normally the abilities and the capabilities. The other problem with rewarding children, whether that's using a sticker chart or giving candy if they're potty training or using sort of awards and stuff when they're at school, is that you create a bit of a reward junkie. You create a child who is extrinsically sort of controlled to behave. In other words, they only do things when there's an external reward. The reward for doing things should be internal or intrinsic. And it's only when a child feels internally or intrinsically good that we start to see a change in their behaviour alongside the development that I mentioned, alongside the motivation issue. So the issue is, the more we reward a child for doing something, the greater the reward they expect the next time. So an example of this may be if you reward your child for doing chores. Let's say you reward them for clearing the family dinner table. What you'll actually do each time you reward them for it is make them less likely to clear the table unless there's another reward of equal or the same value. So what you do is you create an if-then child. If I do it, then what will you give me? And this may seem okay when you've got a toddler or a 3 or 4-year-old and you just want compliance. But as they get older in the teen years, and they don't want their stickers, they don't want lollipops anymore, they want want cold hard cash, your reward has to keep on getting bigger and bigger. So in a nutshell, that's the problem with rewards. There's something that I really do try to stay clear of as much as possible. You know, maybe I will use them very, very, very occasionally if I need quick short-term compliance, but apart from that, they are not an effective form of discipline, and they're not something I recommend using often. I hope that made sense. Thanks for joining in. Bye.